The first thing you notice about a house that holds a ghost isn't always the cold, or the whispers, or the shadows. Sometimes it's just a smell. For me, it was lilac. Not a faint, lingering perfume, but an oppressive, cloying cloud, thick enough to taste, and only ever in one room, the master bedroom of my grandmother's old farmhouse. My grandmother, bless her heart, had been a woman of routine and deeply ingrained habits. She'd lived in that house, tucked away in a hollow of the Appalachian foothills, for over 60 years. When she passed peacefully in her sleep at the ripe old age of 92, she left the place to me. It wasn't a grand estate, just a sturdy, weather-beaten farmhouse with a sprawling porch and a history as twisted as the ancient oaks that shaded its yard. For Chloe and me, it felt like a fresh start. We were tired of city rents, city noise, city everything. The idea of quiet, of fresh air, of a place we could truly call our own was intoxicating. We packed our meager belongings and drove the 600 miles, leaving the concrete jungle behind for what we hoped was a pastoral dream. The house stood exactly as Grandma had left it, a time capsule of faded wallpaper, doilies, and the faint, comforting scent of mothballs and old wood. But even on that first day, the lilac was there. It clung to the master bedroom like an invisible mist. Chloe noticed it first, wrinkling her nose. "Wow, your grandma really loved lilac," she'd said, laughing. "It's like she bathed in it." I'd shrugged it off. She did. Used to have a whole bush by the kitchen window. Maybe some of her old sachets are still in the drawers. We checked. Nothing. So we aired the room out, opened all the windows, even scrubbed the walls with a mild cleaner. The smell, however, was stubbornly persistent. It lessened slightly when the windows were open, but as soon as they were closed, it would creep back, intensifying with each passing hour until it was almost suffocating. It was a strange detail, but harmless, we thought. Just one of those quirks of an old house. We spent our days unpacking, painting, and exploring the surrounding woods. The quiet was profound, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves. Nights were even quieter, a deep, heavy silence that took some getting used to. The first oddity that wasn't just a smell happened about a week in. Chloe woke up with a faint, finger-shaped bruise on her arm. "Must have bumped into something," she mumbled, rubbing it. We both dismissed it. A clumsy moment in the dark, perhaps. But then another appeared, on her hip a few nights later. This one was larger, a distinct purple and yellow blotch. She showed it to me over breakfast, her brow furrowed. "I don't remember hitting anything, Ben. Anything at all." I tried to reassure her, suggesting she might have rolled onto something in her sleep or caught herself on a doorframe. But a seed of unease had been planted. The house, which had initially felt so welcoming, now had a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in its atmosphere. It was as if the air itself had grown heavier, thicker, especially after dusk. The lilac smell, meanwhile, had become a permanent fixture of the master bedroom. It was a constant presence, a silent, fragrant sentinel that never left. We'd try to sleep, and the scent would press in, a floral shroud around us. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I'd wake up, convinced I heard a faint rustling, like silk sliding across the floorboards, just beyond the closed bedroom door. When I'd open my eyes, the room would be bathed in moonlight, empty, silent, and thick with the smell of lilac. Chloe started sleeping fitfully. She'd wake with a gasp, heart pounding, claiming she felt a cold spot beside her or a fleeting pressure on her back, as if someone had pushed her. I'd hold her close, tell her it was just a bad dream, the stress of moving, the strangeness of a new place. But I couldn't deny the increasing frequency of the bruises. They weren't just finger-shaped now. Some were larger, like the flat of a palm had pressed hard against her skin. And they were always in places she wouldn't easily bruise herself. Her shoulder blade, the small of her back, the side of her rib cage. One morning, she woke up sobbing. "It was so real, Ben," she whispered, burying her face in my chest. I felt hands on my ankles, pulling, like something was trying to drag me off the bed. Her voice was raw with terror. And the lilac? It was so strong I felt like I was drowning in it. That was the first time I felt a genuine chill that wasn't from an open window. My grandmother had always been a gentle soul, but she was also incredibly particular, fiercely possessive of her home and her things. A thought, cold and unsettling, began to form in my mind. What if she hadn't entirely left? I started spending more time in the master bedroom, trying to sense what Chloe was feeling. I'd sit on the edge of the bed, breathe in the cloying lilac, and try to empty my mind. Sometimes, I'd feel a faint prickling on my skin, like static electricity, or a sudden inexplicable drop in temperature in one specific spot. I'd tell myself it was the old wiring or a draft, but the feeling of being watched, of not being alone, grew stronger with each passing day. We tried to bring life back into the house, to make it our own. We bought new furniture, hung artwork, even tried to plant a small herb garden outside. But the master bedroom remained untouched, a static pocket of my grandmother's presence. We avoided it more and more, spending our evenings in the living room, a space that felt less saturated with the unseen. The incidents escalated. Objects would be moved, a book from the shelf to the floor, a framed photo turned face down. Once, I found my grandmother's antique porcelain doll, which we'd carefully placed in a display cabinet in the living room, sitting upright on my pillow in the master bedroom, its vacant eyes staring directly at the door. I felt a surge of cold dread, a feeling that something was actively trying to communicate, or perhaps to assert its dominance. Chloe began to withdraw. She stopped exploring the woods, stopped talking about future plans for the house. Her eyes held a haunted, faraway look, and she flinched at sudden noises. The bruises continued to appear, sometimes small, sometimes large, always unexplained. She started sleeping on the couch in the living room, claiming she couldn't bear the oppressive feeling in the bedroom. I joined her, trying to be supportive, but the couch was old and uncomfortable, and I missed the comforting presence of our bed. One particularly stormy evening, the wind howled around the farmhouse, rattling the window panes. Rain lashed against the glass, and the old house groaned and creaked in protest. We were sitting in the living room, trying to watch a movie, but the power flickered intermittently. A sudden, violent gust of wind slammed the front door shut with a resounding bang that echoed through the entire house. Chloe shrieked, jumping to her feet. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen before. "She's here," Chloe whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm. "She's angry." I tried to calm her, to tell her it was just the wind, but her gaze was fixed on the hallway leading towards the master bedroom. Her body was rigid, trembling. "No," she whimpered, her voice cracking. "She's in the bedroom. She doesn't want me here. She never did." The words hung in the air, heavy and chilling. My grandmother had always been fond of Chloe, or so I'd thought. She'd sent her little gifts, called her my sweet girl. But then my grandmother had also been fiercely protective of her family, her legacy, and her home. Perhaps in death, that protectiveness had twisted into something darker, something possessive. A cold dread seeped into my bones. I looked at Chloe, her face etched with raw fear, and knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her live like this, haunted and terrified in our own home. "Stay here," I told her, my voice attempting a confidence I didn't feel. "I'm going to check." She didn't answer, just stood there cowering, her arms wrapped around herself, her gaze still fixed on the hallway. I walked towards the master bedroom, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Each step felt heavy, as if I were wading through thick mud. The air grew colder, the silence deeper, even with the storm raging outside. As I approached the doorway, the scent hit me. Lilac. It wasn't just strong, it was overwhelming. A suffocating, almost physical presence that burned in my nostrils and clawed at my throat. It was as if every petal from every lilac bush my grandmother had ever loved had bloomed in that room, their combined fragrance a weapon. I pushed the door open slowly. The room was dark, save for the faint, flickering light from the living room behind me and the occasional flash of lightning through the window. The bed was unmade, just as we had left it that morning. Nothing seemed out of place, yet the atmosphere was incredibly oppressive, a weight pressing down on my chest. The cold was bone deep, an unnatural chill that made my teeth ache. I took a hesitant step inside, then another. The lilac was so intense now, it felt like it was filling my lungs, pushing the air out. I could almost see it, a shimmering purple haze in the darkness. My skin prickled, every hair on my arms standing on end. I felt a distinct pressure on my forehead, like an invisible hand was pressing down, trying to force me back. Then it came, not a whisper from a distance, or a sound that could be explained away by the wind. This was a voice, cold and precise, right beside my ear. It felt like ice water poured directly into my auditory canal, yet it was distinctly feminine, with an ancient, brittle quality. "Get her out of my house." The words were clear, unmistakable, and filled with an icy fury that froze me to the spot. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command, delivered with absolute authority. The scent of lilac intensified, swirling around me, trapping me in its suffocating embrace. I felt a sudden, sharp push against my chest, so forceful that I stumbled back, nearly falling. My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't a draft, or a misplaced object, or a bad dream. This was real. My grandmother, or whatever essence of her remained, was here, and she wanted Chloe gone. I scrambled backwards, out of the room, out of the overwhelming lilac, my mind a chaotic mess of fear and disbelief. I slammed the door shut, as if a thin wooden barrier could hold back the possessive rage I had just felt. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror. Chloe was still in the living room, huddled on the couch, her eyes fixed on me, searching for answers. The storm outside seemed to mock my fear, its thunder echoing the internal chaos within me. I looked at the closed bedroom door, then back at Chloe's terrified face. The message was clear. My grandmother hadn't just left me her house, she'd left me a problem. A territorial, possessive presence that saw Chloe as an unwelcome intruder. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this was only the beginning. The house had made its demands, and I was caught between the living and the dead. The question wasn't if Chloe would leave, but how? And if she did, would my grandmother's presence ever truly let me go? The scent of lilac, even from behind the closed door, seemed to seep into the very fabric of the house, a sweet, suffocating promise of unending dread. I could feel its tendrils reaching, already starting to wrap around my own mind, whispering of loyalty, of family, of staying exactly where I was, forever.
Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.